All right. First rule of this channel is we do not talk about this channel. Second rule of this channel, this is not legal advice. So, welcome to week 8, how the sausage is made. This is where I just take a look at the box scores and kind of see what went on. Haven't really been paying attention too much to today. Hope your week went well. Uh, might pick up the win in one league, and the other one looks like I'm running away with it, so I should get both. Let's see. So CD Lamb, DeAndre Hopkins, Sam Howell, Josh Allen, Dak Prescott, and AJ Brown. So this is the importance of these elite quarterbacks, like a Josh Allen and a Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts should have had like a rushing touchdown that he fumbled at the 1 yard line. Guys like Sam Howell are less consistent when it comes to their ability. So like you're gonna get these like 4.6 weeks. You're gonna get these like sub 40-degree days. To go along with like your spike weeks, your 31.98 in this whatever league settings I have in this one. And then, a guy like Jalen Hurts, what makes these elite quarterbacks is that they can relatively consistently give you like that 40-degree day or above 40-degree day. And that's why they're so more valuable. So, like a guy like Dak Prescott, like he didn't quite have the rushing floor that we're looking for. But overall, like if he can get back into this tier where he's at least going to give you a 40-degree day with some consistency, and then on top of that, be able to have the spike week, that's where like you're pushing into that quarterback run range. And then you have like Joe Burrow, who's more going to be like that high volume passing attack. Did have some bimbly today, but a guy like that are attached to these like higher volume passing offenses, they have to either hit the higher yardage total, or they have to be able to consistently have like multiple touchdown passes. And when we look at guys like a Will Levis pops up this week, didn't get it on the ground, but the 4 touchdown passes. I'm trying to find like a middle of the road like QB1. I don't see any this week. Maybe Tua is the closest one. When we look at a guy like Tua, doesn't have the rushing floor every week, and then he has to hit these passing numbers. I wanted to find like a Brock Purdy. There's Brock Purdy this week. He did these higher passing numbers in the passing game, yardage wise, than we're used to. But being able to get like the consistency of the low turnovers and the high intercept or touchdowns. And then he had a lot of nimbly bimbly today. So this is just an outlier week when we kind of look for some of this stuff, breaking stuff down. Gus Bus, again, like the consistency of being able to know who's going to run the offense and who's going to fall in the end zone. He fell in the end zone 3 times. Kamara and McCaffrey, you see the value of these guys that have the high receiving floor to go along with the rushing work. And the same thing with ETN. This is what's vaulting him into that like high end running back 1 elite tier. It's just being able to get like the 3 for 6 for 70 and a touchdown as a floor. And it's the same thing with Eckler, 7 for 8, 90 and a touchdown. The 15 for 29 just doesn't matter in the game. Like that's the gravy on top of the receiving work. So the first guy that like outside of Gus Bus, because he falls in the end zone 3 times, Joe Mixon, and he has to essentially get this touchdown to really push him into that next tier to be able to compete with these elite type guys. And the same thing like Breece Hall, 6 for 9, 76 and a touchdown. And he can just get it done without having the rushing work because he can take a 50-yarder to the house. Like that's the difference with some of these guys. So moving on to the box scores, so we can get this done this week. I think Matt Stafford like hurt his thumb in this game, and again, like whatever's going on with the Rams, and they did play the Cowboys, and the first half was just a mess. Not going to push the passing yardage up high enough, and then the lack of the touchdowns. Obviously, I don't have to explain this, like why he's less valuable from a fantasy perspective. Couldn't turn the corner, and then the split backfield. And this week, Royce Freeman falls in the end zone, but Darrell Henderson does get the passing work, so he basically is able to almost get to a 40-degree day just off that passing work. So I don't really know how this backfield is going to shake out when Kieran Williams comes back. And then Myles Gaskins, I don't even know if he was active yet this week. And then the target share, like Puka Nacua, 7, Higbee 7, because they're taking these guys away, Cup 10. So I'm sure that this is just more of what we thought Dallas was going to be at the beginning of the season before they hit that rough patch. and then Dak, getting up there in the elite land with being able to hit the 4 touchdowns. Those are probably not going to be consistent. Not that we can put it on there. So if he's not getting the rushing volume to go along with that, this becomes like a dicier play, and he may not be a weekly starter. He still might be in that streaming category. But again, the offense is good enough, and the defense can put him in the position to score a lot of points, and that might be important. Then Tony Pollard turning into a big bust in this case, like if they just don't need him. CeeDee Lamb, like that's good to see. Jake Ferguson, just getting advantage of being on a good offense. Not too much here. Vikings, Packers. So Vikings get it done, but they lose Kirk Cousins for the year with an Achilles tear. I was thinking about this today when I saw this, like Jordan Addison. I don't know what the backup quarterback situation is going to be. Like the coach already came out and said that they may go with Nick Mullins over Jaron Hall, the rookie out of I think it's BYU. So that's something to be aware of. I don't know how much this is going to hurt all the toys for Minnesota going forward. As a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. Like some of these guys, Nick Mullins looked okay at certain points when he was with the Niners a few years back. Jaron Hall probably has a little bit more of a rushing floor, but the bigger thing from a fantasy perspective, if a guy like Mullins or Hall, whoever it is, if they just lock onto their targets and throw volume, that's what we would want to see from a fantasy perspective. I don't care if it's good targets or bad targets; they don't make any difference to me. I just want the opportunity to go to my pieces. So it happened look like later in the game, so we're not going to have an idea, but like just to keep the targets up high, KJ Osborne, if he can keep the higher targets in this offense, at least until Justin Jefferson get back, like that's going to vault him into that discussion for like the high end 3, wide receiver 2 type range, like weekly role. Hawkinson, Jordan Addison, probably one of the better value picks this year. And then from a backfield standpoint with Madison and Akers, like there's just really not a guy to own. You see that this week Akers falls in the end zone, and then receiving wise, like neither of them are that important. And then from the Green Bay, like again, Jordan Love just may not be good at football, and it's just being able to hide it behind good weapons. And now whatever's going on there, like the other interesting thing is Aaron Jones just has disappeared. From being a thing, doesn't even get consistent work in the passing game. And this is what's frustrating from a football perspective, not from a fantasy perspective. Like you don't have to be good at running the football. And I talked about this on the Sit Start show. You don't have to be good at running the football. You have to just be able to get your running backs in space and let them potentially break one tackle. And if you're not even, you can just give up on the running game and throw the short routes to your receiver or your running backs and let them break the tackles. And if you can't even do that, then all you're left with is trying to push the ball vertically down the field. And teams can sit on those routes if they know that you're not even attempting to make them run with those vertical routes and rally to the shorter routes. So like I just don't know what's going on with the offense at this point. Romeo Doubs like gets one done in the red zone. Kristen Watson 8 targets. And I'm imagining that those are all vertical. Jaden Reed, 6 targets. AJ Dillon. I mean, like AJ Dillon's getting those checkdowns, it looks like, and Aaron Jones doesn't. So I'm wondering if that's like something to do with the hamstring, and Aaron Jones' season is just going to be lost if you're an Aaron Jones owner. And then Luke Musgrave down there again. Like these are not the targets, even though he wasn't particularly engaged. These are not targets I would want to see if I was going to be owning him in fantasy. So I think like again, when you're wrong, you're wrong, and it's just time to move on. Falcons, Titans. So I thought that DeAndre Hopkins was going to be more of a target funnel for Will Levis and Malik Willis, and he wasn't. He only had 6 targets, but man, were they efficient. 4 for 128 and 3 touchdowns. So like, I don't know what's going to go forward. I want to watch the tape on Will Levis to see how well he was in this game. I think one of the guys over there at Underdog called Will Levis like cover band Josh Allen. I thought it was pretty funny. So like going forward, if you could just get functional play, and the Falcons defense is supposed to be like on the at least not bad to okay side, and if you could just get functional play out of the Titans, and Will Levis has a little nimbly bimbly in him, like 7 carries for 11 yards. Like you may have a streamer level, low end quarterback one in Will Levis coming up down the line. Not to put all my eggs not to put all my eggs in one basket based off of one game, but that's kind of what he was in college. And if you can get Derrick Henry doing 22 for 101, and Tajay Spears doing 3 for 27, even Tajay Spears being involved a little bit in that short passing game that's just like an extension of the running game, you have the ability to win games. And I imagine this win kind of keeps Derrick Henry at home. I think I was reading today that the Titans will no longer be shopping Derrick Henry, but that doesn't mean that they won't listen to calls. But this victory means that they are kind of back into the playoff hunt in the AFC South. So I imagine that they might continue to do that with the pieces that they have. And the 1 game sample size is enough for them to go, hey, maybe we should see what we have. So I would be interested in this. So I imagine in all your dynasty leagues that Will Levis has already held. But in deeper leagues, especially with 2 quarterback leagues, like he probably should be a priority, mostly due to the fact that if he can get these 7 carries a game, and they'll end up being more efficient as the game goes down, or the game goes down the line, he may be able to parlay some of the efficiency in the passing game. Because if they can just be good at running the football, good enough at running the football, it will open up the passing game. That's kind of what the Titans have done in the past. So there's a lot of interesting stuff here going forward with the Titans. And again, thinking about buying a Hopkins high, because the owner of Hopkins might be like, hey, someone's coming to sell or to buy him. I'll just get rid of him because he's going to clog my roster. And that's interesting. Again, this is the second time I've talked about like seeing whatever's there and going, hey, maybe I should get a hold of that, and having a guy like DeAndre Hopkins in my wide receiver 3 spot, knowing that he can be a target funnel or the main guy in an offense that is going to function the way it is. Like I said, like this is this type of stuff that I want to see going forward, and maybe being able to get a hold of it because someone's like, oh God, I'm glad someone wants to get this guy off my roster, because that's what happens in fantasy a lot of times, that people don't want to release guys because they feel like they have more value than they really do. And I get caught up in it too. Let's see. So from the Falcons standpoint, like Taylor Heineke got in, and I haven't heard anything if Desmond Ridder got hurt or they just benched him for like inefficient play. I don't know anything about that yet. Heineke got the touchdown. Bijan again, like gets you to a 40-degree day. Didn't really get involved in the passing game. Did have 5 targets. But from a fantasy perspective, I don't care unless they land, and then falls in the end zone. So there's that. And then I talked about Cordell Patterson, 2 for 7, and I don't know. He didn't get anything done there. Drake London still hovering with the 7 targets, the wide receiver 3 range. Kyle Pitts, Jonnu Smith. So this is going to be a little interesting going forward. Again, depending on Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke, like what the situation is going to be there in Atlanta, how much I feel interested in throwing out any of my pieces. Chig kind of may end up being a little valuable if they can get this offense working a little bit. And then Treylon Burks, first game back, 2 targets. So there's a little sneakiness to be stashing in this game to be looking at for sure on the part of the Titans. And that's what I look for a lot in fantasy, is like guys that other people would not value for whatever reason. And then I can get a hold of them at less cost to myself. Like again, like normally the rule is I don't want pieces of bad offenses or even not good offenses. And right now, like people might be like, oh, the Titans aren't good offense. And there may be something there that I can get a hold of and just like, what is it going to cost me to have Will Levis at the bottom of my bench? Like what is it going to really cost me to go buy DeAndre Hopkins from somebody? Like those are the things that I look at, because like I can be wrong and move on quickly without it tanking the rest of my season. So moving on to the Saints Colts, Gardner Minshew, not the greatest day in the world, but like gets it done. It gets it done. So he goes 213, 2 touchdowns, an interception. I imagine unless Zach Moss gets moved, that you're going to see a lot of this. Jonathan Taylor, Zach Moss, probably like closer to a 50-50 split. And a lot of teams want to do this. They have like analytics now and GPS tagging. So like they really like to keep the wear and tear off of running backs down, and that allows them to make it further in the season without decline in efficiency. So I would not be surprised if they do this going forward. The big problem with the Colts is at 3-5 now. Like if they don't start winning some games, like they're going to go into a mode where it's just not as advantageous to win as it is to lose, if that makes any sense. So Josh Downs, 9 targets. That's good to see. Michael Pittman, 8 for 40. That's whatever's going on with that low efficiency, 13 targets. There's Drew Ogletree, 1 for 33 and a touchdown. I just don't think that's going to be sustainable, especially with Granson coming back. Jonathan Taylor, only 1 catch. Zach Moss, 1 catch. So, yeah, it looks like it's going to be about a 50-50 split in the backfield. Maybe 60-40 or hot hand like I was talking about. Alec Pierce. Rashid Shaheed, he's going to be popping up on a lot of waiver wire pickups. Again, the low efficiency. I'm more interested in how much the snap share between him and Thomas were. I don't think that he's ever going to really cut into the pecking order between Kamara overall usage in the offense, and Chris Olave is going to probably be hovering around the number 1, and Michael Thomas probably has his role as that big slot. So I don't really, unless he can get on the field and he can really start cutting into these other opportunities, he has to be really efficient like this. And, it's great to have a guy like that on my roster, or to be able to pick up a guy like that and just throw him in my lineup whenever I need him. But to go into waivers and pay for a guy like that, there are probably better guys to be putting that time into. Taysom Hill, only 1 target in the passing game, but did get 9 carries, 2 touchdowns. So again, if you rolled him out, then good for you. Congratulations. Derek Carr, efficient. Kendre Miller, this surprised me. I did see this with my Alvin Kamara shares. So he's getting phased back in. Jamal Williams. So I don't know if I would necessarily say that Jamal Williams is a straight handcuff anymore to Kamara, but Kamara still has that pretty ridiculous usage. 17 carries, not very efficient on the ground, but another 451 through the air, and then 1 tug both ways. So that's nice. If you took the chance on Kamara later in the draft. Patriots, Dolphins. So I did see a little bit of this. This was a little odd game because it was in the fourth quarter, 17-14, and then the Dolphins got 1 late. So it was closer than maybe the score would indicate at certain points. And then, so from the perspective of the Patriots, there's still not anybody that you want to be owning. Kendrick Bourne, if you rolled him out, got you there with that touchdown, but everybody else, not really interested in anything. Demario Douglas, if he's not being used vertically, if he's being used horizontally, it just doesn't matter from a fantasy perspective. So I'm not really interested even in his snaps. And then Zeke and Ramondre almost appear to be in some type of timeshare, like 60-40 split. And if the offense isn't good and the game script has to actually be where the Patriots are trailing and then they're using Ramondre in the passing game as their number 1 option. Otherwise, he's just not even usable outside of having to throw him in during bye weeks and hoping that you get lucky. Raheem Mostert falls in the end zone. Let's see how much was he used in the passing game. I don't even think he was used in the passing game. And then again, I was talking about this. So Cedric Wilson gets a touchdown on the 1 yard line. And then Chase Claypool, 1 for 15 and 2 targets. So I want to see this snap share in relation to Cedric Wilson because Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, they're going to be the number 1 and the number 2, but they're going to be in that 11 personnel a lot, which means they're going to be in 3 wide receivers. So whoever the third wide receiver is going to have a little bit of value. Jeff Wilson and Sullivan Ahmed were used a little bit. So again, if this goes back to a 3-headed monster, probably going to lower the value of Raheem Mostert, and then you're not going to be able to play that that running back too. And this is going to be interesting if you're a Devin A-Chain owner to know what's going to go on when he comes back. The same thing with the Rams backfield. If you're getting a hold of a guy who's now in a split backfield and you can't use anybody with consistency, that's something to be looking at, to think ahead and go hey, should I be selling this guy, knowing that it's going to be this 4-headed backfield down the line. I just don't know if you're going to be able to know who's going to fall in the end zone, who's going to get the passing work. That may be a little bit harder to figure out going down the line. And then back to Tua, I was watching him. I think I played him in one of my leagues or something like that, and really didn't get it done until later in the game. I want to double check to make sure I'm not full of it. So yeah, like the he got 2 touchdown passes in the first half, and whatever was going on, that third one really pushed him over the line. But because I was kind of watching and seeing how this game was going, so I must have gotten that one. Yeah, later in the second half, that's probably when I stopped watching. But yeah, like I was a little worried that he was not going to be able to get anybody there this week, and then like gets those 3 touchdown passes, which you kind of need. And I was listening to somebody, they were talking about like if the running backs get the touchdowns and Tua doesn't, it's really going to cut into his overall usage on a week to week basis. So I would say like again, like Tua is probably that like mid level to lower level quarterback one at this point, and to be aware that he is probably going to give you some of those inconsistent weeks. Why you pay for the main guys that are out there, that why the value of the elite quarterback has really changed in the last like couple years, because the guaranteed weekly floor, whether they fall into the end zone in the rushing game or they just have those rushing yards every week to go along with whatever passing happens. And again, not knowing how the sausage is made, it doesn't matter as long as they give me my points. And if I have an elite running back and I know that they can always get me there because they're going to hit the receiving floor week to week, and then the touchdowns are going to come either because they have the volume in the passing game and the running game to eventually get there on a good offense. It's the same thing with an elite quarterback, except more than likely the week to week floor on those elite quarterbacks because of the passing game and the rushing game is going to be higher than even those elite running backs. And to be able to go into a week and know that I'm going to have like a 20 or a 40-degree day is going to be a 20-point week, and with a chance at like a 30-point week or above, really sets me apart when a guy is trying to roll out like let's see who had a bad week in the quarterback department. Like if a guy was rolling out CJ Stroud and only got 12 points, or like a Lamar Jackson, thinking that Lamar Jackson is an elite quarterback and he goes out and he puts up like a 12-point week. And I'm rolling out every week. I'm rolling out a Josh Allen or a Jalen Hurts, and I'm just getting those massive spike weeks. That's why a guy like that has value. And then the other thing is like when you see like a Patrick Mahomes going out there and putting up this 7.64, like this was rather predictive on the season based just on how the Chiefs offense has been running. Like they just haven't looked right all year. And then you finally get that week where he doesn't throw any touchdown passes. He doesn't have high passing volume, and he doesn't have that rushing floor. And it all happens in 1 week. And then you get that sub 40-degree day, the week that your elite quarterback loses you a week just because the offense hasn't seen right. And I'll make fun of Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts as being turnover machines. But as long as they figure out a way to get me my fantasy points, I don't really care about that because real football and fantasy football aren't the same thing. So let's see. Jets Giants. This game was like really ugly. I have a lot of Darren Waller shares, and he doing like one reception for 4 yards and then leaving with a hamstring. And the only good news is I finally get him off my roster. If he goes IR, then I'm just done with him. Zach Wilson was not doing very well and then turned it on like in the second half. I think it was. Breece Hall like did all of his damage on this like 150-yard reception for a touchdown. And then Garrett Wilson again, like this is why I was talking about like going out and buying him. This is ridiculous 13. So remember, I think last year Stephon Diggs, Justin Jefferson was the target leader, and he averaged about 11 targets a game. So if we're looking at a guy who's getting those like 13 opportunities, yeah, he doesn't have the best play behind him to support that. Like, if we're looking at Justin Jefferson having Kirk Cousins, Garrett Wilson having, Zach Wilson, apples to oranges at that point. But still 13 targets is hard to shake a stick at, and they won't always be efficient, but they will lead to a lot of 40-degree days in the range of like 7 for 100. And I'll take that because eventually just this opportunity will have him falling in the end zone a few more times. And again, because teams are concerned with Breece Hall. And then even Zach Wilson, I mean, this 240 for one touchdown and then a little nimbly bimbly to go with it. Where's he at? Zach Wilson 4 for 25, like led the Jets in actual rushing. And I was talking about this, if I could figure out where he figured into today. Couldn't have been that high. Again, showing how consistently Well, there is Zach Wilson 12.1, and would have beat Patrick Mahomes this week, and even Lamar Jackson. So like he's going to have fantasy relevant weeks just because of some of that floor, based off of even just like the running ability. That's like 2.5 points off of running ability, and then the Giants couldn't even move the football through the air at all. Tyrod Taylor went out. Tommy DeVito, who I had to look up, he transferred from Illinois to Syracuse, and then he came out early. I think it was that I looked up because I was like, "Who's this guy?" So Saquon just putting the team on his back, 36 carries, 128, and then didn't matter in the passing game because the passing game just basically didn't exist, and they pushed this all the way to like I think like the midpoint of overtime, and then the Jets finally kicked the field goal, and that a lot of that was off of Garrett Wilson getting it done. So yeah. And again, I don't care how the sausage is made. If I kind of know that it's going to be high volume to Garrett Wilson, that's something I want to buy on. And I don't at this point, I don't know if the Garrett Wilson owner is going to be selling. Probably is something I might be a little bit late to. So again, Trevor Lawrence, if he doesn't put together the rushing floor and he's just going to be a 40-degree day, he's barely streamable, and that's just how it goes. So Travis Etienne. And at first I was like, well, Travis Etienne didn't get it done. And then I was like 3 for 70 and a touchdown. So again, if not elite, very close to it, you're not buying that anymore. And then Evan Ingram, whatever, 10 for 88, I'll take that as that like low to mid range tight end one that I'm not even going to think about anymore. Going to give me some bad weeks, but from a tight end position, it's very hard to give me bad weeks. It's only basically like, did he win me my week or not? And you take those lower end plays unless you get like the Travis Kelce or something like that, because it's just par for the course for the position. Calvin Ridley comes back a little bit. Those 10 targets. Again, this may be just an issue of usage by the team, deciding that they actually want to get the football to him, unlike last week. And then Christian Kirk's the loser. So again, like I'm a little concerned going down the line with like Calvin Ridley, especially with Zay Jones coming back. There's probably always going to be at least one guy that misses in this offense that's not Travis Etienne. And then from the Pittsburgh perspective, Kenny Pickett went out with like a rib injury. They're not sure if he's going to play this Thursday. And Mitch Trubisky went and like threw the game away with 2 picks. Again, none of the running backs are really worth it. Najee did 5 for 42, if you're wondering. And then George Pickens barely saved your day with a touchdown on a 22-yarder. And then Deontay Johnson, like the 14 targets. I mean, that's just, if that's the way it's going to go, that high volume, I'm just going to take it. He'll eventually score more touchdowns because of the high volume. So I don't think he'll be available. And I don't know how much in this case I would be buying him because the offense doesn't look good, as opposed to the Titans, who may have gotten enough functionality out of their quarterback that already had the running game. The Steelers don't even have the running game. So that's the kind of the difference. Like the Titans may be in that not good to okay range, and the Steelers are hoping to be in that just like not good range. And that's why I would be less likely to be buying a Deontay Johnson at his targets than say like a DeAndre Hopkins at his. The running game will open up the passing game. There's no running game in Pittsburgh to open up the passing game. That makes sense. All right. Eagles and Redskins. Jalen Hurts, and like I said, like should have had another rushing touchdown. He fumbled at the 1 yard line. Philadelphia should have lost this game. Kenneth Gainwell came in the red zone again and fumbled, and I don't think he saw the field after that. This was all first half stuff. DeAndre Swift got it done late with a touchdown. And again, if he's not getting more of the passing work, he's going to stay in that RB2 range. We'll talk about that when we get to the Chiefs. A.J. Brown, congratulations, league winner. This is Devontae Smith week. Get you what you paid for. And then this is at the cost of you Dallas Goedert owners that he didn't get it done. And then Julio Jones, 1 yard touch or 8 yard touchdown catch. I don't know how much he's going to eat into the offense going forward, but it does look like they do want him out there. Sam Howell, like, what was it? Ridiculous week. Quarterback 1 overall, almost 32 points. And again, I just don't know how consistent this is. The first time these two teams played each other, it was a little. This is kind of the same game flow where the Redskins took control and then the Eagles had to claw their way back into the game. And one of the other interesting things that I saw is that the Eagles defense did not particularly get it done. So Sam Howell, who's kind of a sack machine, only one sack in this game, which was a little interesting. And then you did throw a pick, and I don't know when that happened. But the other interesting thing is there's no Chris Rodriguez to look at. So like that wasn't a thing that happened. I'm still a little interested in the snap share. Brian Robinson was efficient finally on the 10 carries that he got. Still a little efficient in the passing game, but again, if you're splitting time with Antonio Gibson, that's going to lower him. So maybe you can get out from underneath your Brian Robinson shares this week because he got a 40-degree day. And the ghost of Jameson Crowder, 7 for 95 and a touchdown. Johan Johnson finally got it done. Scary Terry, like I said, you're buying these targets. The targets were there. He hit pay dirt. Logan Thomas in that like low end tight end one streamer range. So yeah, those are interesting things to look at. Did I see Rodriguez? No, didn't. All right. And I'm trying to give a little bit more in this. I've some of the back end analytics on the how the sausage is made video. Like I don't know what you guys want to see from this video. This is normally what I do on Sunday nights. Is I just look at the box scores and see if there's anything that's interesting to me. This is my process. And if you guys want to see my process, then great. If you don't, then you don't. I don't have to do the video. It's up to you guys. If it's interesting and what you guys want to take out of it, then I can do more of that. Because some of it I just do in my head. So anyway, CJ Stroud, like this is really disappointing to me. He got it done on a 1-yard quarterback sneak. Otherwise, like it just wasn't going to get it done. And this was a game that I was expecting for them to kind of take control and blow out the Carolina Panthers. Panthers upset them. Dameon Pierce kind of okay. The flop didn't entirely happen, but that may have been partially because Dameon Pierce was okay on the ground. The back end stuff, interesting. Like I was expecting a little bit more of Nico Collins in this game. I was expecting if he didn't get done, Tank Dell would get done. And I was expecting Dalton Schultz to be a very dependable like safety valve, and none of that happened in this game. So this is something that's interesting going forward. Maybe we were wrong about the Texans. Bryce Young kind of got it done. Like, again, this was a really ugly game script. Chuba Hubbard did take over from Miles Sanders. I don't know if Miles Sanders got hurt. He did 15 for 28, wasn't particularly efficient. And then this was one of the things that I was looking at. So because of this change in play calling and how that was done, I was expecting Jonathan Mingo to be more involved, and he was. 5 targets, 4 for 62. And I was also expecting this to kind of have a negative impact on Adam Thielen, and that also kind of occurred. It kind of didn't. I'm looking and guessing that Adam Thielen's like average depth of target was shorter than it was on those in-breaking routes that we saw earlier in the season. Still did have 11 targets, 8 for 72. But I would expect going forward that Jonathan Mingo is going to be more of a thing. And because they got to see what they have, and they may be some type of buyers at the trade deadline for tomorrow night, or excuse me, I think it's Tuesday afternoon. I did hear that the teams have to restructure contracts by Monday to get the deal done on Tuesday. So that might be an indication if some of the stuff is going to go on. Browns Seahawks. This was an odd game because the Seahawks jumped out to a 14-0 lead, and then Cleveland clawed back in before Seattle took it home. So PJ Walker is just better from a fantasy perspective than Deshaun Watson, even though he's going to be consistently throwing 2 interceptions a game, I guess. So Kareem Hunt, before I get to Kareem Hunt, Jerome Ford was active. I didn't roll him my Jerome Ford shares out because I just didn't know how this was going to shake out. And I didn't really see him in the game, but he did go 9 for 37, and then he did have a catch for 2 yards on 2 targets. So Kareem Hunt led the backfield, 14 for 55 and a touchdown. Did do 1 for 12, but Pierre Strong did have 1 for 41 and was relatively efficient with his 10 for 41. So I would not be surprised going forward if this turns into kind of like a 3-headed monster, depending on how well they liked how Pierre Strong played. So maybe I would be thinking of getting out from underneath my Jerome Ford shares if I could. I don't know how short of a really running back needy team, anybody's going to be taking your Jerome Ford seriously. Who knows? But I could definitely see this being a three-headed monster going forward, and that's just not something I'd be interested in unless one of them goes down. Amari Cooper, this is the big beneficiary of getting more work from PJ Walker than even Deshaun Watson. So, definitely in that, solid, wide receiver 2 range, maybe taking off that boom bust target of him. And again, like I was talking about with a guy like David Njoku, with 8 targets, 4 for 77, and finally got his first touchdown of the year. It's just something that, if I paid for this guy, I'm just going to roll him out because the position is so thin, and there's only so few guys that can really make that big of a difference. So again, having the ability to roll out a David Njoku and give me the ability to go up against your Hawkinsons and your Kittles, that are going to be up there at the top of the list, or even a Travis Kelce. If Travis Kelce was up higher, there's only going to be so many of those guys available. And David Njoku is one of those guys that, he's going to give me a lot of those tight end weeks, but he's also going to give me the handful of weeks that can beat those guys. And that's why they're so much more valuable than trying to get a Donald Parham to get this touchdown week. He's just going to be not as predictive as a David Njoku is. And then from Seattle standpoint, I sort of talked about this with Geno Smith having a little bit of a limitation to his game, and then them trying to lean on Kenneth Walker, and we saw a little bit more of Zach Charbonnet. So there's Jake Bobo getting it done on the ground, and hanging around there, and they're going to just eat into each other's work, so you just don't get the consistency of that spike week. So if you rolled out any of these guys this week, Bobo, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and Metcalf and Lockett, they all got you there in their different ways, pretty much a 40-degree day or slightly better. And that's going to be a problem, is trying to guess which one gets that better week or which one gets left out. And I relevant. I do want to see maybe his snap share, but besides that, there's going to be the guy who eats, and then there's going to be everybody else who doesn't. And then the other interesting thing, and I haven't heard anything about this, if this is going to be a thing, Charbonnet and Walker turning into a timeshare. That's kind of what we thought it was going to be at the beginning of the season, and I'm going to be interested in seeing some of the analytics behind this, and if there was something that was going on with this. I think maybe Walker did pop up on the injury report, maybe. I don't know. Don't listen to me if I don't know what I'm talking about. So moving on from this game, Chiefs Broncos, and this was a surprise. The Broncos got away with this one against the Chiefs, and I imagine when I start looking at this stuff, this goes back to the wide receiver problem that Kansas City has. They just don't have the guys that they roll out there and just go stop this. They take all their wide receivers and they say these are what these guys do well, and we're not going to make them do anything else. And that becomes really easy for other teams to go, oh, you put this guy here, and therefore I know what you're going to do with this. Now, from a fantasy perspective, Rashee Rice is going to be, kind of in that wide receiver 3 range for the rest of the year. I imagine the analytics are going to back this up. If he's essentially the number 2 in this offense, he's going to have value going forward. And this was just a bad game. Travis Kelce, 9 targets, 6 for 58. And the biggest thing to take away about this is I was talking about this was Isaiah Pacheco. If he doesn't get this other work that's going to Clyde and Jerick McKinnon, and Jerick McKinnon did 1 for 11, and Isaiah Pacheco is not involved. He's not getting design passing work, and he's not getting all the red zone usage, and that's just what he is. It's going to not push him into that RB1 category, because that's one of the things with a lot of the RB1s is you just never get those sub 40-degree days. And if a guy like Isaiah Pacheco rolls out and gives you what is essentially, like a 5-point week, that can never be in a running back one. That's just not how they function. There's enough floor there based off of usage, especially in the passing game, and usually having the ability to get that red zone work, that they will get you there some other way. And they just the usage there with Isaiah Pacheco just wasn't that of an RB1, and you can tell that if he's getting you there other ways, that all that stuff is going to come together in that one game, and is going to lose you a week especially if you're trying to run a guy that's an RB2 as an RB1. He's just going to blow up, and then you're like, oh. And if that happens in the playoffs, then you've just lost your money. And that's just how I feel about it. And then on the other side of the ball, like you see Russell Wilson getting 3 touchdown passes off 114 yards passing. And then the interesting thing is now you get a Javonte Williams who gets this massive inefficient workload, 27 for 85. And I said last week that I just didn't know how often this was going to happen going forward. Well, they turn around, they do it in a game that they should have gotten blown out. And he, as opposed to Jaleel McLaughlin, it is 4 for 33 and it is efficient. Javonte is not efficient, but then he turns around and he also gets 3 for 13 and cashes that in with a touchdown. And I think that was a red zone touchdown. Javonte 4-yard touchdown. So that's a red zone work. That's all good stuff. So you see kind of the difference between Isaiah Pacheco being that RB2 and Javonte Williams being that, like, fringe RB2, probably like RB3, but then just getting the workload that pushes him over the top, and how similar that as Isaiah Pacheco and Javonte Williams actually are on the back end when it comes to the analytics. One's on a good offense, one's on a bad offense. And if the roles were flopped, then Isaiah Pacheco's stats would look a lot more like Javonte Williams, which, again, from a fantasy perspective, is not something I'd like. Because I can look at the sausage, I can look at the analytics, and they will tell me that if this continues to happen, it will regress back to what it will be if I don't get lucky. And if you had Clyde Edwards-Helaire at the beginning of last year, you should know about this, because he was functioning at such high efficiency that it wasn't going to take much for him to just stop scoring touchdowns. And then his overall value was going to stop. And then Isaiah Pacheco just started eating into the work, and then your league winner becomes, something that you just can't even get off your bench. So, and then in the passing game, not a lot to talk about in this game because there wasn't a lot going on. And the only thing is Courtland Sutton found another way to get it done with a touchdown. So hopefully if you're rolling him out and you're just like, crossing your fingers, then he got you there. And then Ravens, Cardinals, I was watching this. So I had my Amari DiMercado shares. I want to see the snap share on him. He could have gotten there this week. They decided to give Josh Dobbs 2 goal line carries late in the game, or one early, one late, and that probably changed overall what could have been a non 40-degree day to a sub 40-degree day, but like 20 for 78 was kind of efficient, especially against this Baltimore defense. Josh Dobbs, the turnovers really hurt him. I did see that they are planning to roll him out again next week, so at least one more week before Kyler comes out. There were some good things to look at, looking forward to that uptick in performance with Kyler coming in for Josh Dobbs. That Trey McBride 10 for 95 and a touchdown, and appears to be the main guy that they will be targeting. And then you did see this flop a little bit with Michael Wilson and Marquise Brown. Michael Wilson getting some more of those higher value targets downfield, as opposed to Marquise Brown that just wasn't getting them in the shorter game, but did get it done with a touchdown. So getting a hold of these pieces, expecting that maybe the Cardinals are okay to finish the season, is something that I'm still interested in, and they're showing there. So hopefully you stashed your Trey McBrides and you're not going to be knife fighting for him. And then I don't even know exactly what was going on in this game from the Baltimore standpoint, other than Gus Bus, figuring out a way to fall in the end zone 3 times. And then Mark Andrews, falls in, and, there just isn't a lot of work overall. I mean, I imagine that a lot of this had to do with Josh Dobbs and the turnovers. But it was a relatively close game until the end. And then the Ravens jumped out, and then Arizona got it close, recovered an onside kick, and then kicked the field goal, and then tried to get another onside kick with like 30 seconds left. So, yeah, that's kind of how this game went. Little surprising, then not surprising, then surprising, not surprising type of game. And then Bengals 49ers. So this was another surprise. So Joe Burrow gets done with 3 touchdown passes. Mixon falls into the end zone finally. Again, a good piece, or an average piece attached to a good offense with opportunity. We'll get it done. And then I don't see, was it Chase Brown? I don't see him at all, which, again, is something I was looking to see if him eating into the opportunity of Joe Mixon was going to happen, and that didn't occur. Jamar Chase, you're happy. T. Higgins looked like he's getting a back part of the offense. Irv Smith, this is a little interesting, not too much. The tight ends for the Bengals might be a thing, maybe possibly going forward. And then Brock Purdy, two more interceptions and a fumble. And again, I don't know exactly what's going on in this game. Christian McCaffrey is the man, or exactly what you paid for. Kittle gets it done. Ayuk gets it done. So yeah, and then the nimbly bimbly for Brock Purdy is nice to see, but I just don't know again how often that's going to be predictable. Even though he does have that, it's not probably something that from a fantasy perspective I want to see. I would rather him not have the turnovers, the offense stay more in rhythm, and then he just gives me my 2 touchdown passes, and I go home happy with my quarterback 40-degree day. And then finally, to finish this off, the Bears versus the Chargers. I'm going to watch some of the tape on Tyson Bagent. It looked like he was somewhat in control, or I shouldn't say in control. Looked like he was not playing particularly bad. I don't know about these 2 interceptions. They couldn't get anything going on the ground, and they were basically coming out on every first down and getting stuffed. And then putting him in a bad script. And then he made some throws. He hit Darnell Mooney to start the game on a 41-yarder. And then kind of the usage flop with Roshan in the passing game. Maybe that might be something to look for next week. Cole Kmet was there, DJ Moore. There was some interesting stuff going on, but then the more interesting thing in this game that because I was kind of watching it, the Chargers just jumped out early. You see that it was, I think 24-10. Or no, that it was 24. No, I look this up so I can be prepared. The Bears scored a touchdown late in the first half, and then the Chargers just turned around and marched right down the field and scored again. Right here. So 17-0, and then the Bears scored late, and then the Chargers just marched at the end of the half and put it at 24-7. And the second half was really grindery. There was some odd play calling by the Bears because I think they could have kicked a few field goals instead, and they didn't. They went for it. Bagent almost had a 3rd interception, but it was overturned. But again, I'd have to see the tape on that to see if that was just bad play by him or if that was coaching stuff. So not a very good day for the Chargers on the ground, but Austin Eckler finally 7 for 94 and a touchdown. That's great stuff. A little bit interesting stuff with Keenan Allen. Quentin Johnston gets into the mix. I want to see that. That's for sure. And then Donald Parham, I'm assuming that Gerald Everett maybe didn't play. This was interesting that Simi Fakoko, they signed him off of somebody's practice squad just recently. He got more work before Quentin Johnston got in late. And I'm wondering if this was because of the game flow. They just got Quentin Johnston into the game for reps because they kind of, at the end of the first half, kind of knew that they had this game won. And then Josh Palmer, a little disappointing, but he did leave at one point. It was surprisingly active, left and came back into the game. I did roll him out instead of Amon Ra in one of my leagues just to get the points because I knew I already won and I didn't want to take a chance tomorrow. I thought I could get like a 40-degree day out of Josh Palmer. So the interesting thing with Tyson Bagent that did get it done a little bit on the ground late, fell into the end zone. I don't know anything about Justin Fields, but like this, it does trouble me that he couldn't at least be more functional than he is. And again, the question is it a matter of him or is this the coaching staff, especially against this Charger defense? I don't know. So this would worry me a little bit about some of my Bears share. Again, waiting for Justin Fields to come back, how much I'm going to be wanting to roll any of these guys out going forward. But the good news is Austin Eckler finally got it done. So anyway, this has been a long one. I kind of wanted to go through it and kind of talk my thoughts through. So hopefully you guys like this. If there's stuff that you want to hear more of or hear less of, just go ahead and let me know and I'll see what I can do. But anyway, yeah,